I think we're live.
We never know. I'm not watching it at the same time. I'm just watching this little screen we have in front of us. But I assume we are.
Super. So, welcome to this week's community call. For those of you who are regulars on this call, you might be wondering where Sudo is at. Sudo is taking a well-deserved holiday. It is August after all. It is the month of holidays in Europe, and he has been working his little butt off for a very long time, and needs a little bit of rest on the beach. So, but if you're dialing in for the first time, this is a kind of regular community call that kind of allows for good communication to flow between the NIM core team and the broader NIM ecosystem, which means you guys, you listeners, and the ecosystem being people who run our infrastructure, people who hold NIM tokens, people who are generally kind of users of NIM VPN and have kind of been with us in and around the project, either as newcomers or for the past many years. So with that note, let's get into it. So I'm Jaya Brekke. I am Chief Strategy Officer at NIM. We've got Serinko here. Serinko, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hey everyone, it's been a while. I've been in a community call. Jaya's been like a superstar evergreen here. Always happy the community is always happy to see you come every now and then. My role here is to be a lead, a technical lead in networks. That means that I'm in between the devs and the decentralized operators running the infrastructure, providing any type of guidance, and from time to time, AMAs and community calls. That's why I'm here today. Hey everyone, good to see you all again. Rocio, really good to see you over in the chat.
And yeah, me and Serinko decided to jump on and do the community call this week, regardless of Sudo being away, for a very specific reason. And that is that we've got some big upcoming changes to the NIM token economics, namely the NIM improvement proposal number 2, which went through governance with the community of operators back in July and is now being lined up for implementation. And when those changes come into effect, that's going to affect a lot of our operators and the programs that we're running. So we decided to run a little community call on that topic and deep dive a bit on how that implementation will be rolling out. So that's why Serinko's here. That's why I'm here. But first, maybe we can talk a little bit about what else is happening at NIM. As I mentioned, August is a little bit of a kind of slower month. Everybody taking a deserved rest in the middle of the kind of summer heat, regain strength and energy. But it also allows a kind of a bit of a quiet time for the core dev team to really focus on bug squashing. So a lot of improvements have been going out on the NIM VPN. So hopefully those of you who are using the app are already seeing, performance improving, speeds improving, reliability improving. So, please do give us any comments on the releases in the Telegram chat as usual, or via our support channels. And what else is happening? Then, of course, the world at large doesn't stand still despite people needing a bit of a break. So we are seeing some bigger developments in the world of privacy. Those of you who are following the news probably noticed recently when the UK online safety bill rolled out. So that has a big effect on people's online privacy because it requires digital services to actually verify their users' age. So the question is, how can they do that? Will they do that responsibly? And so on and so forth. So there are a lot of potential privacy problems kind of coming up in and around that bill. We've also got the EU presidency now with Denmark, who's revived the kind of infamous chat control. In other words, client-side scanning, which is a bill that wants to kind of scan people's messages on their devices in a way to kind of detect potentially harmful material. There's been a lot of critique of that bill by technical experts, including ourselves, but that's kind of come up now again in a revised form, and we'll be going to vote in October. So, us as NIM, with our core mission being to enable privacy for all of humanity, of course, we're staying on top of those conversations, and also continuing to make the argument in various circles, both public circles and advisory circles, arguing for how privacy actually is essential for security rather than undermining security, and therefore also kind of commenting more specifically on these bills. You know, the NIM, what's kind of interesting about the kind of NIM architecture is, you know, our VPN uses something called ZK NIMs for verifying whether people have kind of paid for the service or not in a privacy preserving manner. Those types of credentials, they're called, can actually also be made general purpose to prove a variety of other things, including, you know, privacy preserving age verification and so on. So we have a lot to offer these kinds of conversations, and are actively involved in doing that, both in the media and also within technical and policy circles. So yeah, let's keep the conversation flowing on those very important topics. Make sure that we continue to advance the fundamental right to digital privacy, and all the kind of added benefits for society that come about as a result. So going from very big picture to kind of more focused on our core ecosystem. Serinko, do you have any news from the developer relations workshop that you were recently running? I know that you guys have been looking a little bit at operator experience and so on. Anything you're happy to share with the community?
Yes, we had a very secret meeting between myself and Max, which is now being put on YouTube Live. So I don't think it's a secret anymore. So our holiday looks like more such a working holiday. We took that time as well to meet together, and on developer relations, we're kind of going back to back with Max, right? Max is working on integration, SDKs, everything, Rust, everything type of stuff, which in the docs you find on /network and /developer portal, while like my focus is all of you operators, people running the infrastructure and everything related to that. So I'll be speaking about that part because that's where I'm working at. I don't want to speak for Max. I think this is a great way to introduce a community call with Max next time together with Sudo. I think it'll be actually pretty amazing. He's got a lot of stuff to update you all as well. Back to the business. On operator side, we basically are talking mostly about the experience of the operators and finally finding time now when the network is a bit ahead of the users, which is great job of you all. We can focus on some of the stuff which has been kind of on a shelf for quite a long time. These improvements will mostly go in kind of like 3 parallel lines towards the same direction to have better experience for those of you running nodes and in the end for the users as well, of course. Which one is to decrease the problem of the complexity of setting up a NIM node. Particularly the exit gateway mode became quite difficult or complex. Like it's a steep slope to begin from a lot of people to set that one up. So I'll share a little bit about how we want to tackle that one. Another one is from the other side, kind of parallel to this one. That's a problem of having better access to orchestration of multiple nodes for like a single admin from your local machine through some tools like Ansible or something like that. But that's not just like a standalone technical issue. We also understand that this is kind of like a social and organizational management of things. So on that one, I'll be in autumn running a series of like a mini educational series, be that AMAs, be that calls like this, and also some writings into documentation. And I would like to not to be alone for that, but invite some of the people from the bigger squads. When we say squad, we understand a group of people providing infrastructure and doing some other name-related things together in a collective fashion. But we have now some squads which are more technical and are maybe more, therefore, efficient based on time updates, communication and stuff. And we have some squads which are maybe more social and do also a lot of political work, which is pretty amazing. So I would like to have a series of few events where I'm going to be inviting different representatives of these squads, or at least some in written form, because I know that some of you are pretty anon and we respect that. So basically people can learn from each other, mostly on a side of efficiency, because we don't want to just put out like documentation on like, this is how Ansible works, and you can orchestrate endless amount of nodes, scale it forever per demand of the network. But also, what does that mean in terms of working in multi-signature and like a little DAO, even doesn't have to be public, organizing your funds, organizing your work, the administration of the nodes, maybe the socials, the communication, and basically start to be, in a way, much more effective, and perhaps also people can learn from each other how to work in such fashion. And for the network, and especially in the future for scaling, when now we are 550 nodes or something, if you're going to be going 10x or something like that, the model as of now, a node per operator wouldn't really be manageable especially for us as well, right? Like to communicate with that many people. If something goes down, we have breaking changes, we need quick upgrades or something, you can talk to a person and like 30 nodes get updated, and it's easier for you all as well. So that's something we want to focus on a technical as well as on a social side. And one thing I would want to improve, which I know we are kind of behind, and it's been a long time on the top of the to-do list, but it always becomes the second thing because of the urgencies out there, is kind of, I would call it like the work name for it is a node first aid kit. What I mean by that, it's start with like a page, a triage page, which would basically replace the troubleshooting one, and we have very clear step-by-step triage checking for operators to kind of help you, but also help us to understand where's the problem. Because sometimes it's kind of like we tackle it in these communications in between operator, DevRel, mentors, operator, and it goes and goes, and we not so like where to really start, right? Like a check on my setup on a server and my environment. And we can even then make tools for it. It doesn't have to be manual either. There can be like a quick script which is going to check some of these things. Next needs to be a check over routing connectivity and issues regarding that. That's out from my machine and into my machine. Okay, all of that is working. Perfect. We go to NIM node specific issues. And then there is the issues on a side of operator has some setup problems. Now we know that all ports are fine. All tunnel manager is fine. All the WireGuard routing, all of that's fine. Okay, there is some configuration issue. Do you have terms and conditions accepted, all these type of things? We can see that pretty quickly. Does it talk to HTTP port and all these things for the self-described endpoint and what have you? Okay, it does. Then we know we actually have a bug on the binary itself. So we can kind of create a little narrative, which for operators can be pretty straightforward check, because if everything works, it'll be check, 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 and automate these tools as much as possible for you all to speed up this process and for all of us to get to the core of the issue, when we then can say, what exactly is it what we need to fix and how to make those fixes? Because sometimes we get stuck in a situation when the operators, especially maybe people who are newer to running him node, would be like, oh, nothing is working, it's broken. And then we figure out that maybe ports weren't open correctly. But we also have the same issue when sometimes people get, in the team kind of like overheated by a lot of work, which is not an operator's problem at all. And we're like, oh, it's just a bad operator setup. But we figure out there was actually a bug. So we need to have like a clarity in figuring out where that is for much easier life of operators and of developers and general efficiency of how we're doing this debugging or configuration kind of update improvement. So that's going to be one of them. The first one I was talking, I went kind of quickly through that, so I'll just stop on that one. The improvement to lower the threshold for people running, and especially want to start a new node, maybe one or two, for a smaller number, even though we will really focus on the education of how to run multiple nodes and be squads. But for those of you who, maybe somebody, they want to try it, and then they see the docs and like, oh, it's so many things, because truly it is. The complexity became quite high. So on one side, it's good if it's essential if people do understand what they're doing, but still they shouldn't have to do all the steps manually, right? So basically what I built a first version of a little CLI. It's an interactive CLI. I'll give a little hint because our repo is obviously public. It's an open software. So those of you who are very, very curious, you can already go to repo, find that open pull request and run it yourself. It sits out there and it's ready for merge. It's just not in production yet. And what the CLI is gonna be doing full interactively without you have to run a single command. It talks to, it's like 9090s kind of bot. It talks to user, hello, what kind of mode you want to run. We're gonna install the prerequisites. We're gonna take you all the way through the bonding prompt. Then you copy this thing to your wallet, that type of thing. And if people are interested in running exit gateway, it's gonna have all the features, which is the mostly painful point for especially new operators, and that is network and WireGuard, routing, tunneling configuration, IP tables route for the WireGuard exit policy, engine setup, SSL, web secure socket, what have you, landing page, and all these type of things will basically happen on the go. So that's something cool. It's the first version. There'll be a lot of niceties and probably some feedback once somebody else than those who build it start to play with it. That always happens. But you already can. You can find it in a pull request and have fun. It's probably gonna be out next week, I hope. That's something we've been cooking. Yeah.
Amazing. There is excitement in the chat already and requests for a demo of the CLI. So maybe something to think about in the next couple of weeks, either for an AMA or another appearance in the community call. But yeah, in short, as you can hear, Serinko and the DevRel team are working hard to make some super exciting improvements to the operator experience overall, from kind of automating the setup of new nodes with the new CLI, to more efficient running of multiple nodes via squad operations, to a node first aid kit. So all three, very exciting things that I can't wait to see being actually rolled out with you guys in the ecosystem and the community. Thanks for that recap, Serinko. Should we get into the meat of the discussion?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. So we're here to talk about NIM improvement proposal number 2, which is a proposed change to the saturation point, what's called the saturation point for NIM nodes, as well as the active set composition. So to try and make this at least relatively accessible to people who might be a bit new to the NIM ecosystem, let's take it from the top. NIM VPN runs on a decentralized network that's run by independent operators. Those operators run nodes that route and mix your traffic. And those nodes have something called stake, which basically means some NIM crypto tokens that are locked up with those nodes as a score of their reputation. So it's a kind of way for the overall community of people that use the NIM network to signal that this node is doing a good job, they're reliable, and so on. So it's a proxy for reputation and good quality of service. Now, the amount of stake that a given node can have is capped at something called the stake saturation point. And that's set there so that there's a kind of maximum level of stake that a single node can get, after which the rewards that that node and their stakers earn starts to kind of diminish. So there's diminishing returns on the stake. And that's there in order to prevent centralization of the network on a few nodes with very, very high stake. So what's happened so far is that the stake saturation point has been set to 1 million. And that's a number that's kind of calculated on the basis of how many crypto tokens, how many NIM tokens are in circulation more generally and are kind of available to be staked on nodes. But what we've seen is that, looking at the available stake and the number of nodes that are actually running the network right now, 1 million NIM tokens is quite a high stake saturation point. It's a high barrier of entry for new node operators that maybe can't get that amount of NIM tokens to stake on their node. And it has a number of kind of potentially negative effects that we're starting to see in the network overall. One being that because the barrier to entry for new nodes is so high, rewards tend to centralize also on people that have been around for a long time, have fully saturated nodes and good performance, and it makes it very hard for new nodes to kind of join in. And also what we've noticed is that mixed nodes are getting a lot higher rewards than the gateway function. Sal, maybe you can share one of the graphs that Claudia gave me ahead of this community call. I'm not usually the one that presents all the graphs. Claudia Diaz, our chief scientist, tends to do that, but I've got a few numbers here on loan from her. So what this graph is showing, the blue line there is mixed node rewards, and the green line is gateway rewards. And this is the kind of overall rewards going to the two functions every epoch. So what we see here is that there's 1,400 NIM tokens that go towards mixed nodes every hour and 600 NIM tokens that go towards gateways, with an overall distribution of 2,000 NIMs per hour being emitted from the reward pool. So that's quite a significant difference between gateway rewarding and mixed node rewarding. So, these are some of the kind of concerns that we've been noticing in the way that the NIM token economics are set up currently. So what the NIM improvement proposal number 2, so NIP 2, what that actually was about was to adjust the stake saturation to kind of lower it from 1 million, to kind of lower the barrier of entry for new node operators, and also change the active set composition, meaning create more kind of available rewards for gateways, so to speak, by having more gateways in the active set rather than mixed nodes in the active set. So the kinds of objectives that we're hoping to achieve by making these changes is, first of all, to kind of increase the kind of network trend towards decentralization rather than centralization by kind of decentralizing rewards and upping the kind of competition overall amongst operators. And also to, merge a little bit these two lines that you guys see here so that the kind of difference between mixed node and gateway rewards are not quite as significant. So the gateways start earning a bit more. And also increase the kind of available gateways in the network. So incentivize more gateways to join the network. So this is something that we're doing, not just because it's kind of more fair, but also because it has, direct benefits to our users. So what we've noticed over the past few months since we launched the NIM VPN to market is that a lot of people, are using the VPN right now in, DVPN mode, meaning that they're only using the kind of gateway routing rather than actually having their traffic mixed. We do still have a lot of interest in the mixed net, so that's, still very much there, but we need to kind of increase the capacity of gateways. So that's another important reason why we're making these changes. So let's see here. Let's see if I can scroll down to this other very nice graph that Claudia prepared for me. So I asked her to create some projections for 3 different scenarios um, of potential changes to the stake saturation. So we've got one scenario here that shows, if we change the stake saturation from 1 million to 500,000, lower it to 500,000. What does that look like in terms of rewards for mixed nodes versus gateways? And also, if we lower it to 250,000, so even further, what does that look like? So the graph that we're looking at here is this is kind of a cluster of nodes that are kind of generally in the delegations program, which means that they have around 250,000 staked to their node from our delegations, our staking program that Serinko will talk about in a bit. And this is kind of like, gateways and mixed nodes overall. So these are like more like fully saturated nodes, and what kind of rewards are looking like. So as you can see here, we've got, entry nodes and mixed nodes, there being kind of like significant difference. And then we start to see, a shift in the kind of reward distribution where those that are in the delegations program, start to earn more rewards because they meet, the full saturation. And we also see, somewhat of a kind of adjustment between mixed nodes and gateways. So that we can start to, close that big gap between mixed node and gateway rewards that we saw up here. I think you can stop sharing the screen now, so you guys can look in mine and Serinko's faces instead. So yeah, in short, that's kind of like the reason why we developed the NIM improvement proposal number 2, and also the kind of potential effects that we see as a result of these token economic changes. So what's happened so far is the proposal was developed, then it went for vote among our operator community in July. The operator community decided to go for the kind of more radical option of reducing the stake saturation point from 1 million all the way down to 250,000, so an adjustment by 75%, and to change the active set composition to increase the number of gateways. The NIM core team, supports that vote. We think it has overall positive effects for the NIM network and also its quality of service towards end users. So it aligns also with our aim here, providing a good level of service to people that are using NIM VPN. So what's happening now is that's being planned for implementation. As you all know, August is the summer month vacation, and the dev team is focusing fully on bug squashing. So implementation didn't happen immediately towards the end of July or now in August, but is scheduled to take place in September. So it's currently being tested in what we call sandbox. So before we do any releases, we kind of test the changes in our sandbox environment to see what other dependencies there might be and how things kind of affect other parts of the system. So currently, our wonderful QA quality assurance team are testing that in sandbox, and then it will go into development. Probably fairly early on in September. So you guys should all see some pretty significant changes to the overall token economic dynamics at that point, towards a very positive direction. So now I want to pass over to Serinko to talk a little bit about how these changes affect our delegations program. So many of you guys, if you're operating nodes, you'll probably be aware that we're running a kind of stake delegations program, which is a kind of bootstrapping program for new node operators that might not have or don't have a whole lot of NIM tokens quite yet. And we kind of select top quality operators and delegate directly from NIM treasury on those good quality nodes, so we can bootstrap and grow the network in a very kind of like consistent way. So that delegations program so far has been delegating 250,000 NIM tokens to nodes. Given that that is going to be the actual new saturation point, the delegations program needs to be changed somewhat. So over to you, Serinko. Could you share a little bit with the community on what the new delegations program is going to look like and what they have to look forward to?
Definitely. First of all, there's not going to be anything dramatic. I want to say, ensure that those of you who are in delegation program as of now will be in delegation program after the changes. We're going to do some updates to the rules to match that with the stake saturation adjustment. As Jaya mentioned, we've been delegating 250,000 out of million, which is 25%, which such stake saturation point would give node some runway, some chance to become part of the active set, and at the same time would be a solid, attractive beginning for more people to stake organically. And in fact, it started to happen. We've seen delegation program nodes with having delegation from our team getting organic stake from who knows who, right? I'm not following which wallets. But that's good news. That's something which just like organic tokenomics flow wasn't working that much in the beginning, and now we see changes like every week or every month. There's been more and more tokens shifted towards the nodes based on their already given stake, I assume, and of course their performance, their likelihood to earn any rewards. But as it was said, there would be now 100% of the stake saturation, let alone that most of you already have some other stakers delegating on top of your nodes. So what would happen at that point would be that all nodes, or basically most of those in delegation program, would be oversaturated. That means, why I say oversaturated, it means because we don't give rewards or likelihood to become part of the active set based on the size of total stake, but the total stake is capped to prevent a whale takeover, prevent centralization. Of course, people can have more stake than 100%, but that means that per token staked on that node, there'll be less of an APR earned, because it will be the same reward but distributed between more tokens being staked on top of the node. So it's
I'm
pretty easy
just,
math.
yeah, I'm just
Yes.
sharing. Claudia shared this other very nice graph with me, which is a kind of plot of node API. And what you'll notice over here on the right is it's illustrating exactly what Serinko was just mentioning. There's a huge drop off in APY here, which is, at, so this is 1 million NIM tokens that are staked on nodes. And you can see nodes that have any higher stake, has a huge kind of drop off in rewarding. So there's diminishing returns. So this is just a bit of a heads up to operators and stakers to make sure to put your stake on another node if it's beyond 100% saturated.
Yeah, basically the nodes aren't anyhow penalized. They got maximum rewards, but because there is much more tokens being staked, then per token ratio is smaller. So you earning less, be that for the operator or for staker. So it's a disadvantage for anyone who oversaturate their node. That's where the term stems from. So what we are going to do with that, we will time and prepare a proper sheet to execute destaking command, which will make we will reduce the stake on each of the nodes, and that will be 225,000 per node in a delegation program. Now this reduction will lead to a 50% saturation. So actually, while we'll be reducing, because we're reducing by 50% of a stake we have currently, but we are reducing to 25%, like 4 times the stake saturation point. So we actually increasing the stake we like double increasing the ratio of the stake you have in the delegation program. Right now you had the 25% from the team, you will go into 50% of full saturation, and we'll still leave you with something like 125,000 or exactly 125,000 to be staked from organic token holders out there. That means also you're gonna become more attractive because you will have 50%. Now what we did, because our stake was only 25%, if you reached a given number, which I think up until now was 90% of a stake saturation, we would just take our full stake 25%, 250K away. That would drop you somewhere to 65%, and you would still be pretty happy going without NIM stake. We will do that a bit differently now. We're gonna do a partial unstaking. So it's not gonna happen that you get to 90% and we unstake you get 40%. There will be quite a big jump. So basically, there'll be a simple function that anytime a node reaches 90% stake saturation, we get to undelegate 25,000, which is only a 1/5 of our stake. 1/5 of a half. It's a 10% of the stake saturation point. And we're gonna be going on. So you're gonna gain some other stakers. You reach 90%. We're gonna do another 25K cut up until you hopefully gonna become fully self-sufficient without having needing of a NIM stake. What does that mean in practice is that because we're gonna fold to half the stake on all of the nodes which we have currently in a program, we're gonna liberate 50% of the token. We're using now all the team tokens in the pool for actually delegating on your nodes. Of course, sometimes people get out of the program, which I'll be talking about shortly. So then we have token for new nodes. So this will liberate us actually 50% of the tokens we've taken for possibly opening more slots for new nodes. For that, we will do some UI UX changes for operators. There'll be like a new page for delegation program. There'll be a little form where you can register. You can sign up in that form. myself, Merv, and the rest of the mentors will then review this page. And on once a week basis, we will do undelegations and delegations to all the nodes. When I say delegation, that means that you will sign up to the form. We will check if you're playing with the rules, and if the things you sign up, the things you submitted there are true, we will delegate on top of your node 125,000. We will check if some of the nodes are oversaturated. We will undelegate partial, as I just described, and we will of course check whether nodes are following the rules, which will be shared on a page. I'm not gonna reread all the rules now. It'll be pretty boring. It also will take quite some time. But basically, it's all about performance. It's about updates and that type of stuff. Basically, you keep good score, you keep good updating pace, and if not, you communicate. A very basic social contract, like whatever can happen, please communicate with us. That's always the issue. And once a week, we will basically publish in channels the list of undelegated and delegated nodes, so it's kind of like public out there. Of course, we don't have capacity to be warning people prior that we're gonna undelegate. We will list it after we do, but there's 200 nodes. It's a dynamic program. It's happening, and you can always re-register back. Maybe something's been happening. You don't update for a few weeks. You also don't have capacity to communicate. It does happen. We also don't have capacity to tell everyone, like, please update your node all the time. The releases are public. We put everything in the channels. So if we undelegate from your node, it's not the end of the world. Register again. You'll be back in a queue. We'll get you in. Nothing happening. When I'm saying that we're gonna having more slots for more nodes, doesn't mean that we'll immediately do like double of the size of delegation program, because then basically all of you are competing for the same cake. That wouldn't be that nice, but also we'll do it kind of progressively. Most importantly, while we are going in some cases accept mixed nodes, and especially those of you who've been already delegated and maybe fall off and want to get back in, or people who've been long-term community members and stuff, mostly we are looking for people signing in with exit gateways, because NIM node running functionality of the exit gateway is seen by the client as entry gateway as well. And those are the two nodes which are mostly used and mostly demanded by NIM VPN users, as Jaya had mentioned. So it is not a hard rule, but in the end of the day, when we have one slot for two nodes, and myself and the mentors have to be looking in which node we're gonna pick. We're gonna pick exit gateway over mixed node, or we're gonna pick an exit gateway of somebody who's been active in a community and has been, out there helping others, pushing the mission forward, over somebody we've never heard about before. It's like that because network isn't really just a bunch of computers running around the world and creating a private alternative to the internet. But when we say networks, we also mean all the people being here in the community call, people coming to the channels, people like pushing the mission forward, sharing the values, and that's the invaluable network of what we were building. Like the people who've been operating that, the squads and the individuals and the ideas are more of a value than just like computers, because in the end of the day, we could spin them ourselves. But now we have all of these amazing technical, skilled, and pretty philosophical like based community which is out there. So we're gonna be looking, of course, into that if we have to decide between two nodes for one slot. I think this is pretty much that. So the main takeaways are really stake saturation. The moment we will shift the stake saturation to 250,000, the delegation program will shift to 50%, which is 125,000 per node. Every time you reach 90%, partial unstaking of 25,000. If you don't play with the rules for 5 and more days, you're gonna be undelegated. You can always sign back in. Not a problem, no punishment there. There'll be a new page, new signing up form. And once a week, we're gonna communicate all the changes which are happening on the side of delegation program.
Super. Nice one, Serinko. So that's all alpha, people. None of that is out in writing yet. But we will be putting this out on a dedicated delegations program webpage, so that you can always go in and check both the requirements and rules for being part of the delegations program, and also how much stake you can expect. But I think, I personally love the design of the new program, Serinko. I think it's nice that we have this scaled undelegation, so that it's not a sudden removal of a lot of stake, but people that are at 90% are still receiving a bit of a leg up until they reach full saturation. I think that makes a lot of sense to improve kind of the overall responsiveness and also just decentralization of the network. So I wonder if we should move on to some of the good questions that we're seeing in the chat. Sal, what do you think? Should we just take it from the start? We have a question right from Beyond. Aren't you afraid that old node runners will leave the project because they will earn less money from their servers? So actually, what all of Claudia's projections are showing is that we are kind of at a kind of aggregate level expecting the opposite. What will actually happen by lowering the stake saturation point is that we'll have more fully saturated nodes, and that means that the full amount of rewards per epoch will actually be distributed. So this is a little bit of a kind of nitty-gritty detail of the token economics, but in short, right now, we have a kind of emission rate of about 2,000 NIMs that are being distributed from the reward pool every hour. But not all 2,000 NIMs are necessarily always released to our node operators, because not all of the operators in the active set will be fully saturated. So, what we're actually seeing, like when we look at kind of Claudia's kind of projections, is that because we'll have more fully saturated nodes, the full amount, the full 2,000 NIM tokens will be going towards node operators. And we're expecting that quite a few of you, especially if you're running gateways, will start to see an increase in the rewards rather than a decrease. Of course, some of the nodes that are, that are fully saturated at 1 million and are currently kind of bringing in, taking most of the reward pool, they will, likely see a decrease in rewards coming through. We're hoping that they're going to stick around nevertheless, because they're, people that have been with us for a long time and have been receiving a lot of rewards. So we'll see a more even distribution, let's say, and an overall kind of increase in rewards going towards operators. So hopefully that answers any of your concerns. Next question. Would it be a good idea to have mixednet at the testnet level? Absolutely, Rocio. I think that's a wonderful idea. As I mentioned, we do actually have an internal testnet called Sandbox, which was kind of public for a while. But maintaining a public testnet is a lot of work. So our kind of dev team has not been kind of, we don't have a kind of, let's say, fully public testnet available for new operators to try out now. But Serinko, do you have any thoughts on this? I personally think it could be a wonderful thing to have a nice little sandbox for new operators to spin up nodes and try things out before setting up mainnet nodes. What do you think?
Sandbox should work fully.
I don't think we have a faucet. That's the problem for testnet tokens.
The faucet is you don't we? I will check that out. But the
Check it
faucet
out.
is that write me a message and we'll figure out. Not me. I'll figure out who's gonna provide you with some testnet. I hold 0 tokens, of course, but you can ask for. Let me see. Here's a faucet token thing. Yeah, I'll check that as we talk. Sorry, I was also focusing on a message before, which I'll also answer quickly. Sal, if you can share the link, because Jaya mentioned some interesting things. Please read carefully. It's just like a really short paragraphs about the reward calculation, so you understand how to increase your reward. And this is no pun intended, but look for something called alpha constant. It's documented in a link which the host will now share in the chat. And the alpha constant is an alpha, which I'm sharing now, means that the more you self-bond, by the way, you can adjust your self-bond as your node is running, and also all your rewards go automatically compounding to self-bond. The more you self-bond, the higher your rewards as well. That's a tiny little constant in a reward calculation, but that's something how to like skew more rewards towards the operator from the rewards as well. But also, so in general, you understand when we say you are not fully saturated, you're not getting full rewards, what does that mean? Just check these little paragraphs. When you're running a node, it's quite a fundamental for you to understand what are your possibilities, options, and what to expect there. There's a little widget calculator in that included, so you can just count what to expect per epoch. Meanwhile, I'm gonna check the sandbox wallet. I'm gonna mute myself out.
So thanks, Serinko. I've also just got some alpha directly from Sashin in the dev team. Says it looks like the faucet has been revived. Indeed, there is a testnet that people can participate in, and you can get testnet tokens from the faucet. Sal, if you could share it with in the chat. So Rocio, do go and have a play around in Sandbox, and perhaps we can create a little like onboarding part of or include this in the onboarding part of the docs. Serinko, people can try things out there. And yeah, do take note of the alpha that Serinko just dropped. I don't think we've mentioned it many other places, but as a node operator, especially now that we're lowering the stake saturation point, self-bond as many of your rewards as you possibly can, because the more, NIM tokens that you bond yourself, the better rewards, as he just mentioned. What's the next question?
So I'll just say one thing before the question comes. There is the guide now being shared in the chat. That guide is fully working, except that the faucet, I will replace it tomorrow. The faucet in the guide will not work, but you have the faucet here in the chat, faucet.sandbox.nimtech.net. We just had the wrong address in there. Anything else is gonna work completely fine. The testnet is working for you.
Super. How can I help NimVPN become a better product? Well, Anon, use it. Use NimVPN as much as possible. And if you're not already in our Telegram channels, or given that your name is Anon, I'm assuming that you really love privacy, just like we do, in which case we also have a Matrix Element community chat. So do jump in our NimVPN channels there, either on Telegram or on Matrix Element, and give us all your comments. So, any issues that you see, any problems that you're having, UI wishes, just throw us all your dreams and desires of what you think would help it become a better product. We're all ears, and we love all the input that we get from, our early adopters. So, yeah. What's the next question? Can NIM implement a revenue sharing model that directs a percentage of revenue from NIM-powered products directly to node operators, if it's possible? Well, we kind of already do. That's pretty much the whole kind of economic cycle, in a sense. So, the exact kind of percentage in terms of revenue sharing is, very much in discussion and continuously being adjusted. But what it's looking like right now is there is a threshold at which revenue coming in from NIM VPN reaches a kind of point where it's sustaining the kind of core development. And then after that, a kind of revenue share with operators kicks in on any profit above that. So it's more kind of, profit share rather than revenue share. And then the way that we've designed the token economic system is that we have our mixed mining pool, which is the bootstrapping mechanism. So, what we're aiming for is somewhat of a kind of like, as revenue increases, we've got the mixed mining pool decreasing, and then at some point they cross over, and more of the rewards will be coming from revenue rather than the bootstrapping pool. But for the time being, the mixed mining pool still has plenty of NIM tokens, so there's plenty of rewards to carry the network forward until we reach good levels of revenue, after which that's absolutely shared with operators. So in short, yes, Bikram, that's part of the design since day one, and we are in fact transitioning from a kind of bootstrap network into a fully functioning self-sustaining market for private traffic routing. So I'm personally very proud of us being in this situation right now of shifting into real world economics. So, yeah, next question. After NIP2, how many tokens staked is the limit to continue to be part of the delegations program? Serinko, do you want to take that? I think we've mentioned it, we've answered it already, but it's worth repeating.
Yeah, so imagine it like that. You are part of delegation program. You have 0 token being staked. I mean, of course, you have 100, so self-bond or bigger self-bond. But say, technically, in that scope, it's 0. We add 125,000 stake as a delegation. That gives you 50% stake saturation. Now, if you're gonna be getting another people delegating on top of your node, that is people staking outside of the delegation program, you're gonna be growing the stake saturation from this 50% which you get from the name team higher up, higher up. The moment you're gonna reach 90% of stake saturation, we're gonna unstake 25,000. That is 10%. Gonna be back on 80 roughly, because of course percentage up and down works a little bit different. You're gonna be growing again. The moment you get to 90%, we're gonna unstake another 10%. And by this, you're gonna slowly be exchanging the NIM team delegation 10% at a time between 80 to 90% for the organic delegation by other stakers. When this happens 5 times, because we always undelegate 25k out of 125k is 5 times. After 5th time we undelegate, you basically have 0 delegation from us. Reverse can happen though, of course, that's an exception to the rules. Some big delegator runs away and unstake, they want to cash out, they want to stake on somebody else, it's their decision. So then you can always re-register back and we top up the stake up to 125,000 because you lost your stake from another delegator, as long as your node is working perfectly and it wasn't because of the quality or the performance or the version or anything like that. Long story short, anytime you get to 90%, we take away 10%.
Cool. What's our next question? New rules will be posted on operators chat. Yes, indeed. Will NIM team come to Argentina for the Cypher Congress? Well, unfortunately, probably not this time around, Rocio. Danielle might be able to make it, but right now we're trying to kind of avoid too much long distance travel and too many events for the core team. This is because we're really kind of focusing 100% on improving the performance of NIM VPN. Events are super important, very valuable for community building, and for, of course, partnerships and marketing and so on. But right now, we want to kind of take a little bit of time to make sure that the product and the network is fully up to scratch before we give it another big push on events. So under those conditions, events can be somewhat distracting for people. We love traveling, we love meeting, especially you guys in the community. But every time people travel, it takes many days out of the actual kind of development and work cycles. So unfortunately, not this time. Maybe some of the NIM community in Latin America will can join, and you guys can meet up in person there. That would be fantastic. And if you do, please do send us pictures. Do we have any other questions? What's the next big thing, and how can NIM, the MixNet, grow a full ecosystem with users, node operators, integrators, researchers, and apps? A blockchain-style ecosystem. That's a great question, Bikram. Me being kind of, I've been very much focused on networks and ecosystem in the past couple of years. So this is something that's close to my heart. But also NIM, as a team and as a company, we've made a kind of strategic choice to focus very much on the NIM VPN app before we grow the ecosystem. And that's because the app is kind of like almost an MVP, it's like the window into this new type of traffic routing network that we're building. What we realized in some of the kind of early years of NIM was that NIM, because the kind of mixnet is not exactly a kind of blockchain, but we rather use the blockchain for to run the token economics and the kind of the what's it called, directory authority. We were kind of a little bit like the odd one out in other Web3 ecosystems because we weren't just like another DApp or like another blockchain. We were something kind of strangely in between, both kind of at a lower network level than dApps traditionally sit on, but also not exactly a kind of blockchain system per se. So it was a little bit kind of like the narrative was a little bit difficult in the kind of early days to capture kind of that blockchain imagination. And on the other hand, because we're a blockchain, we do have a blockchain component. We weren't kind of fully legible as a kind of system or fully understandable as a system in the kind of traditional Web 2 space. So what we decided to do was, think a little bit about like what is the most commonly understood method for protecting your traffic in transit when you're doing stuff on the internet, and that is a VPN, right? You have millions and millions of people using VPNs. There's a huge market for them, and it's actually a radically growing market. And so we decided like the one way to make what we do with the mixnet, which is so unique, kind of legible and understandable to audiences both within the kind of Web3 blockchain space and also beyond, is to build a VPN that demonstrates what the mixnet can do, what decentralized a DVPN can do when it works properly, and to kind of really sell that to the world. And that is the kind of first window, the MVP of the NIM network overall. And then from there, we'll kickstart, the full kind of integrations, B2B kind of strategies for both the VPN itself, but also for the network more generally. And of course, then we're hoping to see many more apps integrate the NIM network directly, so that users can route their traffic through, the mixnet or the DVPN mode automatically through the kind of their favorite messaging apps or email apps or whatever else that they're using. So, the kind of ecosystem vision is 100% still there, Bikram. Don't you worry. But we have the NIM VPN as the first, step towards that, to really demonstrate that you can build apps that run on the NIM network. Those apps work, they work in a performant way. They're functional, and they can compete in the market. And also, that then creates a kind of broader space for researchers to also get involved. We do have a lot of researchers actually that are looking at the NIM network already, and we're expecting quite a number of papers coming out assessing our system and looking how to kind of advance various features over the next year or so. So I was just discussing actually earlier with Claudia today on a paper that's coming out soon, or being submitted soon for review. So we do have, the beginnings, the seeds of a very big ecosystem already in place. It's just going, step by step with the app first, and then more integrations and research papers that are very much in the pipeline. So thanks for the question. It's an important one. Any other questions? Yeah, in 1 minute, we've got the privacy stack. So if you're not tired of listening to various NIM team members talk about what's going on in the world of NIM and also with our partners, NIM, is partnering with a lot of other people that are building privacy software, both in the Web3 ecosystem, but also beyond. We have set in motion an initiative called the Privacy Stack. And Theo is running an Twitter space that's starting in exactly 1 minute. So do jump over to Twitter if you want to kind of have a listen in to what's happening otherwise among our partners. I think we can wrap up there. Serinko, what do you think?
Yeah, I've been seeing few. I can go over those real quick. So one, all the delegation program, of course, there will be in channels, and there'll be a standalone page for that with the registry form. The best way to onboard builders, check out Nim's code leak with sudo. Not gonna go too deep. Next community session, he can talk more about it. He is always happy to give updates, but there's opportunities and grants for builders. We can also just dive into channel, talk with Max in our dev channel. We always like to talk. And I think that's pretty much it. What's your secret of being beautiful and radiant? Well, swim in waters in clean rivers when you wake up, climb trees before you go sleep, read Morai Bookchin, and work with Jaya and Max in the same team.
Lovely stuff. All right. Big love to all of you guys in the community. Any newcomers, do consider, using the NIM VPN app. Consider running a NIM node with us. We're a really friendly bunch of people who really love to geek out over privacy tech. So, looking forward to next time. And you can always catch us async in the Telegram chats or in Element. And yeah, jump over to Twitter to listen to what Theo has to say. Thanks, everyone.
See you. Ciao. Peace.
Oh, right. If anyone wants to POAP, secret phrase, saturation. There you go. I nearly forgot that, Sal. Thanks for the reminder. All right. Catch you all later.